I'm Rachel Morgan. 12 months following the devastating loss of both my beloved grandparents, one departing unexpectedly while the other succumbed after an exhausting fight against a relentless illness, I made the difficult decision to completely renovate their weathered cabin nestled in the mountains of Gatlinburg to prepare it for the real estate market. The winding, narrow mountain path stretched endlessly before me as I navigated toward the property to inspect the ongoing construction progress when my cellular device suddenly buzzed with an incoming call. Mike Stevens, the experienced contractor I had personally selected and hired for this emotional project, spoke through the receiver with a voice that carried unmistakable weight and concern. "Ms. Morgan." His words came slowly, deliberately. "We've just discovered something extraordinary behind a concealed barrier wall in the upper level and uncovered a secured electronic container concealed within the structure. Your younger sister's complete name, Sarah Morgan, has been carefully etched directly into the metal surface. You must arrive here immediately, but please, I'm urging you not to make this journey alone. Contact your parents and your sister immediately and insist they accompany you to this location." My stomach plummeted toward my feet as anxiety flooded through my entire being. I carefully maneuvered my vehicle to the roadside on the treacherous mountain passage, my hands trembling uncontrollably as I frantically dialed each family member's number, informing them only that an extremely urgent and unexpected situation had developed regarding our cherished grandmother, and demanding they meet me at the family property without any delay whatsoever. When our entire family finally gathered together and assembled in the thick, dusty upper room surrounded by scattered construction debris, power tools, and fine particles of sawdust floating through the air, we formed a circle around that mysterious small obsidian container resting ominously on the wooden floor. Complete silence enveloped the space around us. The atmosphere felt incredibly dense, almost suffocating in its intensity. Whatever secrets lay hidden inside this unexpected discovery wasn't merely some forgotten family memento or sentimental keepsake from years past. In that pivotal moment, staring directly at my sister's name carefully carved into the lid with precision, I understood instinctively that whatever we were about to uncover would fundamentally transform everything I had always believed and trusted about the people closest to me in this world. Even now, years later, I still experience goosebumps and chills when I recall that life-altering instant with perfect clarity. Before I reveal what happened next in this incredible true story, tell me where you're currently watching or listening from right now, and what time it is in your location. Have you ever received a single unexpected phone call that completely changed the way you perceive and understand the people you love most in your life forever? Share your own story and experiences in the comments section below. I personally read every single response and comment that gets posted. The aged cabin structure sits majestically positioned on the steep mountainside just outside the charming town of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, completely surrounded by towering evergreen trees that sway gently and consistently in the mountain breezes throughout most of the year. During our childhood years, my younger sister Sarah and I spent countless magical summer weeks at that very location with our devoted grandparents. We would race each other up the steep wooden staircase to reach the loft area, transforming that space into our private hideaway and secret clubhouse, complete with faded blankets draped creatively over exposed wooden beams, to construct elaborate forts and reliable flashlights for late-night storytelling adventures that continued until our grandmother called us downstairs for dinner. The massive triangular windows provided us with breathtaking panoramic views of the Smoky Mountains, stretching endlessly into the distance. And on particularly clear days, we could easily spot majestic eagles soaring high above, or watch dramatic thunderstorms approaching from many miles away in the valley below. Winter visits to the mountain retreat felt incredibly cozy and intimate. Our entire family would gather closely around the massive stone fireplace located on the ground floor, carefully roasting marshmallows on long metal forks, while Grandpa enthusiastically repeated his most beloved fishing stories from the nearby mountain streams, dramatically exaggerating the impressive size of the rainbow trout he claimed to have caught with each retelling. Grandma Dorothy would settle comfortably in her favorite well-worn armchair positioned nearby, quietly knitting warm scarves or carefully reviewing important client documents and folders, her reading glasses perched delicately on the tip of her nose. Grandma worked as a highly respected retirement financial advisor, the type of dedicated professional who helped elderly clients navigate complex trusts, complicated annuities, and comprehensive estate planning strategies to protect their hard-earned life savings and ensure their financial security. She frequently conducted business meetings directly in the house, utilizing the small den located just off the main living room as her professional workspace and office. I would occasionally peek curiously into that room and observe her patiently explaining complex financial forms and documents in simple, understandable language, making absolutely certain that widows or retired individuals fully comprehended every single detail before signing any important paperwork. During her later years, Dad David began visiting the mountain property with increasing frequency and regularity. He would arrive unexpectedly and unannounced, pulling her aside for private conversations about new investment opportunities or specific client situations and accounts. His voice maintained that smooth, charming quality I had always known, but I began noticing how his gaze would sharpen and intensify whenever she mentioned certain accounts or investment portfolios. She would change the conversation topic quickly, gently reminding him about strict confidentiality rules and professional boundaries, though he would press just a little longer and more persistently each time these discussions occurred. The loft area underwent a significant transformation during those final years of her life. Suddenly, and without explanation, access became completely restricted and off-limits. The door remained secured with a brand-new deadbolt lock that no one remembered purchasing or installing. Sarah and I were both in our 20s by that time, visiting the mountain property much less frequently than we had during our childhood. Consequently, we didn't question this change very much, or consider it particularly unusual. We naturally assumed that Grandma needed additional privacy as her health steadily declined, or perhaps wanted to store important medical equipment and supplies up there without her adult grandchildren accidentally tripping over it or disturbing her organized arrangements. Grandpa's sudden and unexpected heart attack devastated everyone in our close-knit family when I was 28 years old. He departed this world instantly, without any warning signs or advance notice. Grandma received her cancer diagnosis shortly thereafter and fought the terrible disease with incredible determination for another complete year, remaining stubbornly independent in the house she absolutely loved and cherished. She grew increasingly frail with each passing month, spending countless hours in that same familiar armchair positioned next to the warm fireplace. However, her sharp mind remained completely clear and focused. She continued handling all her personal and professional affairs right up until the very end, carefully updating her will to leave the mountain property directly to Sarah and me. No complicated trusts were necessary since we were both adults and her only direct heirs under Tennessee inheritance laws. Sarah clung desperately to the romantic idea of preserving the place exactly as Grandma had left it, maintaining it as a shrine to our wonderful childhood summers and memorable holiday gatherings. She's always been the more emotional and sentimental one, carefully keeping boxes of old letters and holiday ornaments as if they were sacred religious artifacts. But harsh reality set in quickly and decisively. The house sat completely empty, steadily accumulating property taxes and expensive maintenance costs we couldn't afford to ignore indefinitely. I had built a stable marketing career in Nashville, a solid 4-hour drive southeast through the winding mountain passes, and was diligently saving money for future financial stability. Sarah, teaching kindergarten near Gatlinburg, struggled significantly more with post-divorce single mother life on a modest teacher's salary. She was renting a cramped apartment that barely provided adequate space for her and her young child. Allowing the property to deteriorate and fall into disrepair felt completely irresponsible and disrespectful to Grandma's memory. I advocated strongly for comprehensive renovation, updating the loft into an airy, modern living space with new skylights and beautifully polished beams to appeal to potential buyers seeking that rustic chic aesthetic that was becoming increasingly popular in the region. Selling the property would split the proceeds fairly and equally, providing her with breathing room for accumulated debts, or perhaps a down payment on a small home, and giving me a significant boost toward achieving my own financial goals and objectives. That's exactly how Mike Stevens and his construction team got the renovation job. His company specializes specifically in mountain homes, dealing expertly with steep roofs, humidity damage, and those tricky cabin angles that regular contractors often handle poorly or incorrectly. We walked through the entire property together initially, carefully mapping our priorities and deciding to start with the loft renovation for maximum impact on future real estate listings. The construction crew began their work several weeks prior to this discovery, methodically stripping old paneling and preparing the space for new drywall installation. During that particular visit, I spotted Grandma's beloved armchair still tucked away in the loft corner, the fabric faded, but still intact and recognizable. The side drawers displayed faint pry marks around the lock mechanism and fresh scratches that definitely hadn't been there during previous visits. She had once casually mentioned misplacing a few unimportant papers amid treatment side effects, brushing the concern aside quickly when I asked for more details. It seemed like a minor issue at the time, just another quirk related to her declining health and the effects of her cancer treatment. Heading up the mountain that particular morning for what I expected to be a routine progress check, excitement mixed with bittersweet emotions and memories. The house embodied both joy and loss intertwined together. Lazy summer days chasing fireflies in the evening, Thanksgiving dinners with extended family members, quiet evenings listening to classic records on Grandpa's old stereo system. Renovating meant inevitably erasing some precious traces of our family history, but keeping it vacant and empty honored absolutely no one and served no meaningful purpose. Sarah reluctantly agreed to the renovation plan, understanding the financial practicality and necessity. If only I had known that the crew's construction work would uncover far more than simple structural issues or cosmetic fixes requiring attention. I couldn't wait for the other family members to arrive. The moment Mike hung up the phone, I pressed the accelerator to the floor and raced the remaining distance up the mountain, my tires gripping the sharp curves as autumn leaves whipped violently past the windows. My mind raced faster than my vehicle was traveling. Why was my sister's name engraved on a hidden container? Why did Mike's voice carry such urgency and concern? Why did he insist so strongly on bringing the entire family together for this discovery? By the time I pulled into the familiar gravel driveway, the construction crew had completely cleared out of the loft area to give our family privacy and space. Mike met me at the bottom of the staircase, handed me protective work gloves, and pointed upward without speaking a single word. Thick dust hung heavily in the slanting afternoon light streaming through the triangular windows, sawdust crunching audibly under my boots as I climbed alone toward the unknown discovery. The container sat positioned on a protective tarp in the exact middle of the exposed wooden beams, matte black in color, with a small digital keypad glowing faintly in the dim light. It appeared expensive and completely out of place among the rough pine boards and scattered insulation scraps. Mike had carefully wiped the container clean, revealing the engraving on the lid clearly. Sarah Morgan, carved in simple block letters. No date, no additional marking or identification. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I knelt carefully beside it. Digital safes like this particular model usually lock out permanently after 3 incorrect attempts. Sometimes they wipe their contents completely and permanently, a standard security feature designed for protecting sensitive documents and valuable information. I knew Grandma had upgraded her home security systems during her final years, citing growing identity theft concerns among her elderly clients as the primary motivation. First attempt, her birthday. Red light, electronic beep of denial. Second attempt, Grandpa's birthday. Another rejection and negative response. My pulse pounded loudly in my ears like thunder. One more incorrect code, and this container could erase everything inside forever, leaving us with no answers and endless questions. I closed my eyes tightly, picturing her at the kitchen table entering passwords on her tablet computer, always reusing meaningful dates to avoid forgetting important information during chemotherapy fog and confusion. Then the answer hit me suddenly. Their wedding anniversary. The one she celebrated religiously every year with the same yellow roses delivered specially to the house. I punched in the numbers slowly and deliberately. Green light, a soft mechanical click. The lid released smoothly. Inside lay a single envelope made of heavy cream paper, her favorite stationery from the local artisan shop in downtown Gatlinburg, and a folded note written on plain white stock. No USB drive, no stack of files or documents, just her distinctive handwriting that I would recognize anywhere in the world. The envelope was addressed simply, for Rachel or Sarah. Open only if I'm gone. The seal had yellowed slightly with age, the tape brittle from the passage of time. I sat cross-legged on the cold plywood subfloor, mountain wind whistling through gaps in the unfinished walls, and carefully slid the envelope open with trembling fingers. The letter spanned 4 full pages in her distinctive neat script, though noticeably shakier toward the end, with ink occasionally smudged, as if written in short bursts between pain medication doses and moments of clarity. My dearest granddaughters, if you're reading these words, I didn't survive long enough to handle this terrible situation myself. I've suspected for many months that your father David has been doing something terribly wrong and illegal with some of my clients' retirement funds and life savings. It started with small things, odd questions about specific accounts, pushing for introductions to wealthier seniors in the community. Then serious discrepancies began appearing in monthly statements I reviewed carefully for friends and longtime clients. Money was being moved in ways that didn't add up mathematically, always routed through business entities I couldn't trace quickly or easily. The worst part of this entire nightmare, every single suspicious transaction I've discovered so far, ties directly back to information that was only available under Sarah's complete name and personal details. Her social security number, previous addresses, even forged signatures that look disturbingly close to her actual handwriting style. I don't yet have ironclad proof of exactly how deep this criminal activity goes, or precisely how he's managing to execute these elaborate schemes. But the pattern is clear enough to absolutely terrify me. If federal authorities ever investigate this situation, Sarah would be the very first person flagged and suspected because absolutely everything points directly to her identity and personal information. I've been gathering whatever evidence I can manage to collect, printouts of suspicious transactions, call logs from concerned clients, bank alerts, but my physical strength is fading much faster than I initially expected. The second sheet contains login details for a secure cloud storage folder, where I've uploaded copies of everything I've discovered. A trusted colleague is helping me keep it updated when I'm too weak to manage it myself. Use this information very carefully and responsibly. Please, whatever you decide to do, protect your sister at all costs. Don't let her take the blame and punishment for something she knows absolutely nothing about. I wanted desperately to confront David directly and force him to tell me the truth, but the cancer won that race against time. I'm so sorry I couldn't finish this investigation for both of you. All my love forever and always. Grandma Dorothy. The words blurred and became illegible as tears welled up in my eyes. She had carried this enormous burden completely alone, shielding us from the truth while her body failed and betrayed her. Guilt, anger, confusion, and disbelief crashed together in my mind like ocean waves. How long had she known about this? Why didn't she tell me sooner what exactly had Dad done to these innocent people? The mountain wind picked up outside, rattling loose shingles on the cabin roof, mirroring the emotional storm that was beginning inside my heart and mind. I folded the letter carefully and completely, slipped the cloud storage credentials into my pocket for safekeeping, and sat there on the dusty floor, staring at the empty container that had just shattered the foundation of everything I thought I understood about our family and the man who had raised me. The drive back to Nashville felt absolutely endless and emotionally draining, the mountain roads gradually giving way to interstate traffic as dusk settled peacefully over the landscape. My mind replayed Grandma's words over and over again like a broken record. The shaky handwriting, the unfinished suspicions and fears, the desperate plea to protect Sarah from whatever was coming. By the time I unlocked my apartment door in the downtown high-rise building, exhaustion mixed dangerously with dread and anxiety. I set the letter carefully on the kitchen table, poured myself a large glass of water, and opened my laptop computer. The cloud login credentials stared back at me from the folded note. A simple URL address and password combining her wedding anniversary with a phrase she had always used for secure files. Secure Nest, 1958. Logging into the system took only seconds to complete. The dashboard loaded slowly and deliberately, a basic storage service she had likely set up with technical help from someone more experienced. Nothing fancy or complicated here, just a single folder labeled for family review and examination. No polished organization was apparent. Files were scattered randomly like she had uploaded them hastily between doctor appointments and rest periods. Several were corrupted beyond repair, videos cut off abruptly mid-sentence, scans pixelated and unclear from shaky hands or poor lighting conditions. Clearly, her illness had made this entire documentation process absolutely grueling and exhausting. Chemotherapy sessions had left her too weak for extended technology sessions. The first folder contained scanned handwritten notes from client meetings and consultations. Pages dated over the past 3 years showed her characteristic meticulous style, client names, retirement amounts, investment types, but red flags jumped out immediately upon closer examination. Certain accounts were missing from her official records, cross-references to online banking portals she had accessed independently. One entry noted a widow's $500,000 nest egg transferred to an unfamiliar limited liability company. Another mentioned a retired couple's annuity cashed out prematurely and unexpectedly, funds rerouted through a shell account with no clear paper trail. Deeper investigation revealed bank screenshots, blurry from phone photos taken in dimly lit rooms during her illness. Transfers could be traced back to accounts bearing Sarah's complete name and social security number, forged signatures clearly visible even in low-resolution images. Her maiden name was misspelled once, like a sloppy amateur attempt at deception. The criminal pattern emerged gradually but clearly. Small diversions at first, building systematically to larger sums over extended time periods. Grandma had annotated some documents with sticky note scans. Why Sarah's information? Client denied authorizing this transaction. Then came the audio files, short video call recordings time-stamped during her final months of life. Lois Crawford, her longtime colleague from the financial advisory firm downtown, must have guided the technical setup and helped her understand the process. The files used a secure application for remote recording, probably to avoid detection by family members. I clicked the first file hesitantly. Grandma appeared on screen, pale and visibly frail in her hospital bed that had been set up at home. Her voice was weak, but probing and determined. David, about Mrs. Harrison's account, the one you recommended to her son. She says funds have completely vanished. Explain this to me again. Dad's face filled the other half of the screen, his home office background displaying his golf trophies and awards. He laughed it off initially, dismissively. Mom, you're clearly mixing things up with all the medications you're taking. I just advised on portfolio diversification, that's all. But she pressed forward, feigning confusion from painkillers and treatment effects. The routing information shows Sarah's personal details. Why is her social security number involved? He hesitated for a long moment, then slipped, accidentally. It's nothing important, just a placeholder account for routing purposes. She doesn't need to know about any of this. The call recording cut abruptly. File incomplete and corrupted. Another recording from several weeks later showed Grandma listing specific unauthorized transfers with amounts and dates. Dad grew increasingly defensive and hostile. Those clients trusted me through your introduction. This is legitimate business. A pause occurred, then his voice lowered to an almost whisper. Sarah's information was convenient for my purposes. Clean credit record. No questions from banks or authorities. Grandma's sigh filled the speaker completely. Absolutely heartbreaking to hear. He didn't confess outright to criminal activity, but the evasions and explanations painted a clear picture of systematic fraud. He had deliberately exploited her client trust, siphoned retirement savings meant for nest eggs or medical emergency funds, masking electronic trails under Sarah's identity to shift blame if caught by authorities. Under federal law like the Elder Justice Act, identity theft combined with financial fraud carries severe criminal penalties, especially when targeting vulnerable senior citizens. Sentences can reach up to 20 years if proven to be systematic and widespread. I pieced together additional details myself, where audio files broke off or became corrupted, cross-checking dates with public record searches on my phone. One victim, a retired teacher, lost her entire pension fund accumulated over 30 years. Another victim, a disabled veteran, lost his VA benefit supplement completely. All transactions connected directly to Dad's consulting side business he had bragged about proudly at family dinners and holiday gatherings. The emotional weight hit me like a physical blow. Grandma had been compiling this evidence completely alone, her professional advisor ethics clashing painfully with maternal instinct to avoid accusing her own son without bulletproof evidence. Tennessee's elder abuse reporting mandates required licensed professionals like her to flag suspicions immediately, but family ties complicated the situation enormously. False reports could backfire legally and professionally. By midnight, my eyes burning from the bright screen glow, the betrayal had crystallized completely in my mind. Dad hadn't just made errors in judgment. He had systematically used his mother's professional network, forging criminal paths that pointed directly at Sarah as the responsible party. The incomplete files frustrated me enormously. Missing links in transaction chains, garbled audio from poor internet connections, but enough evidence remained to demand immediate action. Lois's involvement made complete sense now. She had probably coached Grandma on secure backup procedures, knowing the legal risks of digital trails under privacy laws like HIPAA for health-related financial information. Shutting the laptop finally, I paced frantically around my small living room, streetlights flickering through the blinds. The pieces fit together too neatly, too perfectly. Tomorrow I would call Lois for additional clarity and guidance, but tonight the devastating truth settled in my stomach like lead. Our family harbored a secret destroyer, someone who had betrayed the most vulnerable people in our community. I sent Sarah a text message that following morning asking her to meet me at the little independent coffee shop on Main Street in downtown Gatlinburg, the one with the mismatched vintage chairs and strong espresso we had favored since our college days. She replied quickly, suggesting lunch hour since her kindergarten shift ended early that day. Driving up from Nashville again, the familiar route through the mountain passes felt heavier this time, every mile closing the gap between suspicion and direct confrontation with family. Sarah arrived first as usual, already seated at a corner table with 2 lattes waiting patiently. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes from juggling teaching responsibilities and single parenting demands, but she smiled warmly when she saw me walking toward the table. We hugged longer than usual, the kind of embrace that lingers when something unspoken hangs heavily in the air between 2 people. I wasted absolutely no time once we were seated comfortably. Pulling out my phone, I showed her carefully selected screenshots from the cloud folder, the forged account statements bearing her complete name, the transfer trails leading away from elderly clients Grandma had trusted implicitly. Her face drained of all color as she scrolled through the images slowly. At first, complete denial and disbelief. This can't possibly be right, Rachel. Someone must have hacked my information or something similar. Then confusion, flipping through images much faster. I let her process everything mentally, sipping my drink while she pieced the puzzle together piece by piece. Slowly, suppressed memories began surfacing in her consciousness. Wait, those weird bank letters I received years back asking for verification on accounts I never opened or authorized. I thought they were common scams, so I shredded them immediately. She paused on a blurry signature scan, studying it intently. And those emails during my divorce, my ex-husband waving printouts at me angrily, accusing me of hiding money in secret accounts. He said my credit score was completely tanked because of secret debts I had accumulated. I swore repeatedly it wasn't me doing any of this. The more she talked and remembered, the clearer the situation became. Dad had timed everything perfectly and strategically, opening lines of credit in her name right as her marriage strained and deteriorated, maxing out credit cards she never held or used, tanking her credit score completely. So loans for a bigger place or reliable car became absolutely impossible. Her ex-husband, convinced she was lying about their finances, walked out citing financial irresponsibility and deception. Child support legal battles dragged on endlessly because judges saw delinquent accounts on her credit record. Even promising job offers fell through when background checks flagged fraud alerts tied to her social security number. Sarah's hand shook as she held the phone, scrolling through evidence. Shock shifted gradually to something much fiercer and more determined. All this time, I blamed myself completely. Bad choices, poor money management skills. Turns out someone deliberately sabotaged my entire life. Her voice cracked with emotion, anger rising steadily. We paid the bill and left the coffee shop, deciding fresh mountain air might help clear our heads. Instead of heading home immediately, I suggested an unexpected detour. One victim's name stood out prominently in Grandma's notes. Mrs. Elizabeth Watson, 85 years old, widowed school principal, who who had lost nearly $400,000, meant specifically for grandchildren's college funds. The assisted living facility sat on the outskirts of town, a low brick building with carefully manicured gardens popular among Gatlinburg area retirees. We checked in at the front desk, explaining we were relatives of a former financial advisor seeking to follow up on important financial matters. Staff members led us to a sunlit common room where Mrs. Watson sat by a large window knitting a scarf, despite arthritis-swollen fingers making the work difficult. She welcomed us warmly, her eyes lighting up immediately when I mentioned Grandma Dorothy. Such a brilliant lady, always looked out for us old folks with genuine care and concern. I eased into the conversation carefully, showing printed summaries, careful not to overwhelm her with too much information at once. Her expression darkened significantly as she recalled meetings with a consultant recommended by Grandma, a polite man in his 50s. Sharp business suit, promising higher yields on conservative investments that seemed too good to be true. He used the name Charles Bradford, said he partnered with your grandmother's firm on special opportunities. Multiple visits occurred, forms were signed, funds transferred completely, then complete silence with statements showing zero balances across all accounts. I called Dorothy frantically when I discovered this. She promised to investigate immediately, but her health deteriorated rapidly. Tears welled in her eyes. Never recovered the money. Had to downsize completely, dreams for the grandkids' education destroyed. When I asked if she had ever dealt directly with Sarah, she shook her head firmly and definitively. Never met or spoke to anyone by that name ever. All contact went through Mr. Bradford exclusively. Confirmation hit Sarah like a powerful wave. She gripped my hand under the table, knuckles white with tension. Mrs. Watson's story matched the files exactly and completely. Same amounts, same timeline, same false assurances and promises. Leaving the facility, Sarah walked straighter, fury replacing self-doubt completely. Years of scraping by financially, explaining away failures to friends, doubting her own competence, all deliberately engineered by someone she trusted. In the parking lot, she turned to me with determination. We can't let this stand, whatever it takes to get justice. I dialed the number listed in one of Grandma's cloud notes the next morning, heart pounding as it rang repeatedly. A warm but cautious voice answered professionally, Lois Crawford speaking. I introduced myself as Dorothy's granddaughter, mentioned the hidden files and evidence, and asked if she had time to talk privately. She paused for a long moment, then suggested we meet in person immediately. These things are always better discussed face-to-face for security reasons. We arranged to connect at her office in downtown Gatlinburg that same afternoon, a small financial planning suite she had shared with Grandma for many years. Lois greeted me at the door, silver hair pulled back neatly, eyes sharp and alert behind rimless glasses. She led me to a quiet conference room with views of the Mountain Parkway traffic moving slowly below. Coffee steamed between us as I laid out carefully printed summaries, careful selections, avoiding full victim names to protect privacy under federal guidelines and regulations. Her expression tightened visibly as she read the annotations and evidence. Dorothy confided bits and pieces to me, she said, voice low and serious. We argued fiercely about the proper course of action. I pushed her repeatedly to go straight to federal authorities. Elder financial exploitation is a reportable offense for licensed advisors under SEC and state rules. But she refused stubbornly, terrified any premature move would backfire severely on Sarah's future. Lois explained the heated exchanges they had experienced, Grandma insisting on gathering more definitive proof to avoid false accusations against family members, Lois countering that delays risked more innocent victims losing their entire life savings. Dorothy wanted an absolutely airtight case, so investigators would see the framing immediately upon review. Identity theft layered over fraud makes the innocent party, your sister, the initial suspect in many federal probes. Lois had helped set up the cloud account precisely for secure backups, teaching Grandma basic encryption tools during lunch breaks between client meetings. I knew her health was slipping away rapidly. We raced against time constantly. She leaned forward intently. You're doing exactly the right thing now. I still consult regularly on cases with an FBI special agent focused specifically on elder fraud schemes, Agent Harrison Reynolds. He's handled similar identity theft rings targeting retirement assets across multiple states. With my permission, she called him directly, putting the phone on speaker mode. Reynolds's voice came through calm and thoroughly professional. Ms. Crawford's referred cases are always solid and well documented. Send everything you have through our secure portal system, and I'll review it tonight personally. Uploading the intact files from home that evening felt surreal and almost unbelievable. Bank trails, audio clips, handwritten lists now in official federal hands. Reynolds called back quickly the following morning. The evidence impressed him significantly. Clear patterns of unauthorized transfers, totaling over $2.1 million across 7 victims, all routed through accounts bearing Sarah's credentials and personal information. Strong enough for prosecution, definitely, he said, but the framing is sophisticated and deliberate. Without careful presentation and strategy, standard protocol flags the name holder first automatically. Your sister could face subpoenas or account freezes before we pivot to the real perpetrator. He outlined serious risks under federal wire fraud statutes if Dad claimed ignorance or pinned responsibility fully on forged documents. Sarah's clean explanation might not hold initially without his direct admission and confession. Reynolds suggested a controlled setting, a family gathering where conversation could be legally recorded under Tennessee's one-party consent law for felony investigations. No warrants needed if I hosted and consented to the recording. Lois joined the follow-up call, brainstorming logistics and strategy. The house in Gatlinburg provided neutral ground tied to Grandma's estate for plausible cover. We crafted the invitation carefully, a group text claiming workers found additional paperwork in the loft, old trust amendments requiring signatures to finalize probate distribution. Tennessee probate can drag with unsigned addendums, making the excuse believable and legitimate. Mom and Dad would drive up from their suburb outside Nashville. Sarah lived close enough for a day trip. Reynolds coached subtlety, keep discussion natural, steer toward Grandma's client concerns without direct accusation. Let Dad fill silences, back up audio via my phone in plain sight. No hidden devices to avoid interception laws. Agents would monitor remotely, ready to intervene if escalation warranted safety protocols. The plan crystallized over several hours of preparation. Arrive early, position seating for clear recording. Have escape phrases if tension spiked dangerously. Hanging up, relief mixed with nerves throughout my entire body. Lois squeezed my hand reassuringly. Dorothy would be proud you're finishing what she started with such courage. Stakes felt immense. Justice for victims. Protection for Sarah. Confrontation with the man who had raised me. But delay wasn't an option anymore. More time meant more risk of Dad covering tracks completely. The weekend arrived with crisp mountain air and brilliantly clear skies, perfect for the drive up from Nashville. Mom and Dad pulled in first, their SUV loaded with overnight bags since they decided to stay rather than commute back the same day. Sarah showed up shortly after, parking her older sedan beside the familiar gravel path. We gathered in the living room, sunlight streaming through the large windows onto the stone fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. I positioned the laptop on the coffee table, screen facing everyone, phone propped nearby for backup audio. Legal under state rules since I was participating and consenting. Conversation started light initially. Updates on work, Sarah's kindergarten class, Mom's garden club activities. Dad steered toward the house sale naturally, asking about potential offers and timelines. I shifted gears smoothly and deliberately. Before we discuss numbers, there's something from Grandma's files the contractors uncovered. It involves her old clients and some concerns she had. I opened the compiled audio playlist, volume moderate, so words carried clearly throughout the room. The first clip played Grandma's frail voice questioning irregular transfers and unauthorized transactions. Dad brushing it off dismissively as market fluctuations and confusion. His face on the couch tightened visibly, but he forced a chuckle. That's taken completely out of context. Mom was on heavy medications toward the end, hallucinations and confusion. We all witnessed it firsthand. Mom nodded beside him, reaching for his hand supportively. Let's not dredge up painful memories unnecessarily. Your grandmother wouldn't want us fighting over this. I advanced to the next audio segment, bank routing details tied specifically to Sarah's credentials and personal information. Dad's denials grew sharper and more aggressive, editing tricks and manipulation. Anyone can fake audio these days with technology. Sarah sat rigid, eyes fixed on the screen intensely. When a clearer exchange rolled, Grandma listing specific victim names, Dad admitting convenient access through her introductions, his posture changed dramatically. The charm cracked completely. He leaned forward, voice dropping to that manipulative tone I had heard during family arguments throughout my childhood. Fine. Let's say some investments went south unexpectedly. Mom always favored Sarah, shielding her from real-world consequences, constantly bailing her out of trouble. I had to build something substantial for myself and my future. Mom murmured agreement quietly. Dorothy did spoil the baby of the family excessively. It created resentment and unfair treatment. She admitted quietly, knowing about irregularities, but staying silent to protect family unity. Families protect each other no matter what. Exposing it would destroy us all completely. Dad's defenses crumbled into pure bitterness and resentment. She introduced me to those wealthy retirees, then acted shocked when I maximized business opportunities. Using Sarah's details was smart and strategic. She'd never noticed, too busy with her low-paying job and messy personal life. No one would believe her over me anyway. He listed tactics proudly now, layering shell companies, timing transfers during market dips to mask losses, routing funds to his lifestyle upgrades and personal expenses. Those old people had more than they needed anyway. I earned it through my connections. Sarah's breathing grew audible, tears streaking her cheeks silently. I kept steady, guiding questions to draw more specifics. Victim amounts, forged forms, deliberate credit sabotage. He boasted about the precision and planning. Sarah's clean history made perfect cover for everything. By the time anyone looked closely, she'd take the heat and consequences. Mom shifted uncomfortably, but added, I thought it would stay small and manageable. I didn't want the family name ruined permanently. The room thickened with tension. Childhood photos on the mantel staring down like silent witnesses to this betrayal. Dad's arrogance peaked dangerously. You think turning this over changes anything? Blood is thicker than water. I rose casually, walking to the window overlooking the driveway, a prearranged signal. Headlights flashed twice from unmarked vehicles parked just out of sight down the mountain road. The front door opened without knocking. Agent Reynolds entered first, badge visible, followed by 2 FBI officers in plain clothes. David Morgan, you're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and elder financial exploitation. Dad's face went ashen as handcuffs clicked. Mom gasped, clutching the couch arm desperately. Sarah stood frozen, relief and horror mixing in her expression. Reynolds recited Miranda rights calmly while officers secured the scene. No resistance, just stunned compliance amid the familiar surroundings where we had once celebrated holidays together. They led him out past the fireplace, past faded family portraits. Mom followed to the doorway, calling his name weakly. Sarah and I stayed inside, the weight of years lifting and crashing simultaneously. The arrest unfolded efficiently, standard procedure for white-collar cases. No dramatics needed. Vehicles pulled away down the mountain road, leaving silence in the house that now felt irrevocably changed forever. The investigation stretched across many months, federal agents combing through layers of shell companies and offshore routing that Dad had buried deep. Prosecutors built an absolutely airtight case under the Elder Justice Act and wire fraud statutes, charging him with systematic exploitation of vulnerable seniors, a felony carrying steep mandatory minimums when victims exceed certain ages. The evidence from Grandma's files, combined with his own recorded admissions, left little room for defense strategies. He accepted a plea deal to avoid a trial that could have added decades, 24 years in a medium-security federal facility in Memphis, Tennessee, with no early parole eligibility under current guidelines. Asset forfeiture followed swiftly. The Nashville house, 4 bedrooms with manicured lawn, all purchased with diverted retirement funds, went to public auction through the U.S. Marshal Service. Luxury vehicles, investment portfolios, even collectibles from his office were seized and liquidated. Proceeds covered restitution first. Nearly 92% returned to the 7 victims, averages in the hundreds of thousands each. Mrs. Watson received enough to restore her grandchildren's college funds, and cover long-term care upgrades. Others rebuilt depleted nest eggs, some moving from worry about basics to modest security again. The government process dragged, but fairness prevailed. No full recovery, yet substantial justice. Mom chose loyalty to the end. She sold what little remained in her name, downsized to a small apartment near the prison, and attended every visitation allowed. Letters arrived occasionally at first, pleas for understanding, claims of remorse. But Sarah and I returned them unopened. We blocked numbers, changed emails when necessary. No contact felt like the only healthy boundary. Sarah's recovery started slow, but gained momentum with fraud reports cleared from her record through the identity theft affidavit process. Credit agencies removed the black marks. Her score climbed steadily. Within 18 months, she qualified for a modest FHA loan on a 3-bedroom ranch in a quiet suburb outside Knoxville, close enough for sister support, far from old ghosts. Teaching kindergarten brought renewed purpose. Parents noticed her confidence, leading to a coordinator role with better pay and benefits. I shifted jobs too, taking a remote marketing position that let me relocate nearby. Weekends filled with helping her unpack, painting rooms, building routines free from past shadows. The cabin sale closed smoothly. Proceeds split evenly after fees, providing her down payment cushion and my emergency buffer. Watching her sign closing papers, keys in hand for a place truly hers, marked the real turning point. Cutting ties completely wasn't easy. Holidays felt strange without extended family traditions. Birthdays quieter. But toxicity has no place in healing. Blood ties don't obligate endurance of betrayal. American culture values individual well-being alongside family, and mental health professionals emphasize no contact when patterns prove destructive. We chose peace over pretense. Looking back now, the hardest truth Grandma left wasn't just the evidence. It was the lesson in courage. She fought alone to shield us, sacrificing comfort for integrity. Sarah and I honor that by protecting our future the same way. Boundaries firm, trust earned, support unconditional between us. Some relationships can't be salvaged, and forcing them only prolongs pain. Walking away from toxic parents, even biological ones, isn't abandonment. It's self-preservation, a step many take for healthier lives. If there's one thing this taught me, it's that family isn't always defined by DNA. It's built on actions, respect, honesty. Sarah and I created ours from scratch, stronger, without the weight of deception. Victims regained dignity through restitution. We regained ours through truth. Peace came not from forgiveness forced too soon, but from accepting reality and moving forward unburdened.